Lorie Out Loud.
Hey, beautiful people. Welcome back to another episode of Lorie Out Loud, the podcast where voices get amplified, culture gets celebrated, and creativity takes center stage. I'm your host, Lorie Jean Akambi. And today's episode 4 is rich with insight, creativity, and courage. We kick things off with our latest fashion view segment. We're showcasing a high-low dress made with vibrant cotton fabric straight from Ghana Textiles Printing, better known as GTP. It's a bold fusion of tradition and modern style that tells a story through every thread. Then, in Speak Your Mind, we're joined by the newest voice in historical analysis, Richard Hoge Jr. He's sharing his thoughts on one of West Africa's most talked about leaders right now, Captain Ibrahim Traore of Burkina Faso. Get ready to hear this young historian's perspective. And finally, we close with a powerful conversation in Auntie's Corner. After Cassie Ventura's heartbreaking testimony against Sean Combs, the question many are still asking is, why didn't she just leave? As a survivor myself, I know that question carries weight. So I sat down with Joy Ingram, a dedicated advocate and expert in domestic violence and sexual trauma, to explore the real answers behind that painful question. Answers rooted in compassion, experience, and truth. This episode is about what we wear, what we think, and what we survive. So take a breath. Tune in and let's get loud. Lorie Out Loud. Hey, today I'm stepping into the spotlight with Fashion View in a high-low dress made from rich, vibrant GTP cotton fabric straight out of Community 4, Tema, Ghana, by way of the Netherlands. The colors, red, orange, blue, white, and yellow, are bold, brilliant, and bursting with energy. The patterns mimic spiral globes immersed with geometric shapes and interconnected line patterns. Big love to the incredibly gifted seamstress Margaret, who stitched this masterpiece to life with grace and precision, just for me. It's given movement. It's given drama. It's giving everything. Catch me next time for another standout look right here on Fashion View. Until then, keep shining and keep showing out.
Lorie Out Loud.
Welcome back to Speak Your Mind, the space where unfiltered voices meet fearless conversation. Every episode, we hand the mic to someone with something real to say. Today, we're diving into a powerful topic with our guest, historian Richard Hoge Jr., who's here to speak his mind on a figure making waves across West Africa, Captain Ibrahim Traore, the young and controversial leader of Burkina Faso. Love him or question him, Traore is changing the conversation, and Richard has some thoughts. So buckle in. This is Speak Your Mind. Hello, Richard. Welcome to Speak Your Mind.
Hi, thanks for having me. How we doing?
Great. I'm doing all right. So we're going to dive in. Let's get into it, Richard. What do you have to say?
All right, so like you said, Captain Ibrahim Traore visited Burkina Faso. Sorry, he visited Russia over this past weekend to really promote ties between his country and Russia. And one thing I want to make sure everyone understands is that Ibrahim Traore, that he's a leader, and some people even dare call him a president, but really all he is a military leader who stole democracy from his country. He initiated a coup some time ago, and really, it's been under military rule ever since. There hasn't been anyone making decisions that is a civilian for his country for some time now. Yeah, so I think we're seeing all over the news people showing it as a good thing, which, I mean, in some ways it is, but
Mm-hmm.
really what we should be promoting is the transition of power in Burkina Faso from what it is now to back to civilian hands.
Yes.
So yeah.
Well, Richard, as I've been reading about this again, I've been getting a lot of information regarding this leader. Um, and you're right. He did take power via a coup back in 2022. In fact, as I understand, he was the second one that took power from so over an 8 month period, basically. So the first military person took power, and then there was not, I guess, adequate satisfaction about how that was going, and then he subsequently took power. But before then, there was a president in place. I think what I learned was since what 2015. So he had been in place for about 7 years, and as I understand, the gist of the power grab was that the country, Burkina Faso, was being overran by jihadists.
Yes.
And so, in fact, I think it talked about over half of the country uh, was not uh, accessible by government, by the people, or they couldn't have government services because of these jihadists like what is it, ISIS and Al Qaeda and things of that nature. So this is the reason that is given regarding how come they took or stole democracy, as you put it, because they were trying
Yeah.
to get better for their country.
I mean, certainly, yeah. I mean, for decades, Burkina Faso has definitely had weak governance, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
However, that doesn't. I mean, really. So what he's been doing, he's taken power. I mean, I can see why he took power. I can see that, but not giving it up. Like he keeps pushing back when he will stop being interim president to the
Mm-hmm.
point where it's just clear that he has no intention to
Mm-hmm.
relieve his power. So really makes him no better than any other strong man or dare I say dictator
Yeah.
that we've seen throughout history. And while we're still on the topic, I find interesting uh, how much we're with the Russia ties to it. And really, what a lot of people are forgetting is that um, both these countries have something in common, whereas other countries won't do business with them because how controversial they are. Obviously, we all know there's the war in Ukraine. People aren't doing countries aren't doing business with Russia, and then he's and back in Burkina Faso, he's a junta leader who stole democracy from his people. So it looks bad doing business with him. The Russians, they don't care about that, so they're going to do business with him.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and by business, they're getting access to their mines over in their country. We're talking about uranium as well as gold as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really what all this is about. It's not about, I mean, yeah, it's about promoting ties between the country, but they're both getting something out of it. Um, Russia is getting their materials from Burkina Faso, and Burkina Faso is getting military support
Yes.
from Russia to
Yes.
help
It's
insurgencies.
and dare I ask the question, what is wrong with that? Especially since, right, under the auspices of, okay, my country is being overran by these jihadists and I need help. I can't do it myself because the evidence has suggested that they had before, I mean, with France, because France was with them before, with France, the France ties, they had weak military. And so they're trying to get rid of and push these jihadists out of their territory.
Yeah,
And so they need help. They can't do it by themselves. And so the argument is that they reinvigorated their ties because they did have past ties, I guess back in the 90s or
Yeah,
whatever,
yeah.
with Russia, just for this. So Russia can, or what they call the Wagner Group, which
Yeah,
is
Wagner
not
Group. Yeah, yeah.
formally
Mhm. Yeah.
Russia, but it was the Wagner Group was founded by a former Russian
It's
military
Russian. It's Russian.
uh,
Um,
expert, and so that's how these countries pay these groups like the Wagner Group. They pay them with these resources. It's kind of like they're renting a military
yeah.
to assist
Essentially.
them with, in this case, clearing the jihadists from their country.
Yeah.
Also, what we're commonly hearing from or regarding Burkina Faso is that this is a good thing for the country that, again, he's rid himself or the country of France ties. And so then he can now more readily utilize his resources for the people inside the country. Um, and so there's evidence to suggest that, he's starting back schools because under this jihadist system, the schools, they said over 6,000 schools, which sounds like a lot of schools, but they said over 6,000 schools were shut down because the jihadists was running rampant across villages and towns and all kinds of stuff, not allowing um, just regular everyday things to take place. They were
Yeah.
trying to implement, what is it, Sharia law
Yeah.
and just
Yeah.
all kinds of stuff, just trying to take over.
Yeah.
And so
So let
I
me
guess, yeah,
touch
go ahead.
let me touch into what you were asking earlier. So I don't think it's a bad thing, but the only
Hmm.
reason why they're in this situation is because he's a junta leader. If
He's
he
a what?
was because he's not a democratically elected leader.
Oh, okay.
That's the only reason why they need Russian support. So if
Yes.
he were to give up power and bring back democracy, they would get solutions from the West again. What was I gonna
But
say?
why is the West, or in this case, France, the savior?
Well, why is Russia the savior? I mean, essentially, so Burkina Faso is a previous what do you call it? French colony. So they've had
Yes.
ties since independence. So that's where that
Yes.
strings back from. But really,
Exactly.
all they're doing is the relationship between Russia is at its core not much different from what it is with what it was with France. If we're really
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
looking at the details here,
Mm-hmm.
so really you could just argue they're trading one situation for another.
Yeah.
So it's really not much different. They're still there for their resources, and Burkina Faso is getting military support out of it. So
Yeah.
can you really argue it's much different?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, again, of course, the media, and depending upon what media you look at, I think the Western media definitely has your opinion that you speak of, but then the media, I guess African media, whatever, they're couching this as really independence from the former colonizers, and they're basically trying to bring more countries into the mix in that they're trying to convince other countries that are led by these former colonizing, Western countries to break from them and find ways to embrace a more
Embrace
free.
Russia. They're embracing Russia. It's
Well, I
that's
think
what
it's
it is.
because they can't do it themselves at this particular point. It's kind of like they're utilizing, seemingly, and this is my analogy, they're utilizing Russia as a crutch to
Yeah.
assist them.
So what we gotta think about is who are the two biggest global powers right now? It's
The
the West and it's Russia.
Yeah.
So do you see what I'm getting at here?
Yeah,
Whereas
well,
they're just trying to win favor from these countries that are naturally they're rich in natural resources. If Russia can win their sway, then
yes,
they're sitting in a better position on the world scale. So that's
for
where
sure, for sure.
So,
Well,
as you like to say, as you grow up saying, don't believe the hype, don't believe the propaganda, is what I'm saying. That's really all it is. I sound like some like guy on Fox, but don't listen to the Russian propaganda because really that's all it is.
mm-hmm.
It may say like you see these Instagram accounts called like I see a lot of them. They're like called like Africa Now or yada yada yada, and they're really pro-Russian. So it's really interesting to see. So take with that what you will.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, we can't solve the world's problems here, but definitely is a controversial topic to talk about. And it definitely is, I think the West feels a certain kind of way about it, especially, I mean, not just France, but U.S. As I understand, our president, Donald Trump, invited Captain Ibrahim Traore here to the U.S., and he subsequently declined him, basically. But he did just recently go to Russia, as you opened with, and met Russian authorities, gave a speech, and highly praised Russia for their collaborative efforts. And so I think he's, on this particular path where if you believe the hype, he is trying to find different routes to bring his country upward. And I don't think it doesn't seem like there's any future plans to elect a new government system, a democratic government system.
Yeah,
and so we'll see what's going to happen. And then also, I think it's important to take note that this military leader, Captain Traore, at this point, or at least at last count, he has had at least 18 assassination attempts on his life. And so this definitely is not an easy job. And is not, I don't know, just a glorified one. And so I don't know if I want my life taken to save my country. And so I don't know. It's just a balance, a hard balance here.
I mean, how did he get the bout? He got it by force. So
yes,
gotta expect that.
So what is it? What are you saying? Live by the sword, die by the sword?
Eventually, he chose that.
Okay.
Eventually.
Okay. Well,
I'll say.
Anything else you want to say on the subject, Richard?
I think that's about it. I just think, at the root of it, let's just always just see where we're getting our sources from. But that really will apply from anything.
And what do you hope to see ideally for the future of Burkina Faso?
I hope to see elections to resume in the country. That's really what it needs.
Yes.
Among many things, but that's the start. We need him to step down and bring back power to civilian hands.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, well, that's a wrap on episode 2 of Speak Your Mind. Big thanks to Richard Hoge Jr. for bringing passion and perspective to the mic as we unpack the impact and the complexity of Ibrahim Traore. If today's discussion has you thinking, good, that's exactly the point. I'll see you next time. Until then, stay curious, stay bold, and keep speaking your mind. Hey, beautiful people. It's Lorie Gina Combi, your host of Lorie Out Loud. I've only been podcasting for about 6 weeks now, but I'm pouring my heart into every episode, and I hope you've been feeling the love. Well, after finding out that my advocacy work of 18 years is being eliminated, Lorie Out Loud has suddenly become more than a passion. It's part of my new beginning. If you're enjoying the journey so far, I'd be so grateful for your support. You can contribute through Cashapp at $LorieOutLoud. That's Lorie Out Loud. Every little bit helps me keep going, growing, and sharing out loud. Thank you so much.
Looking for soulful music to spice up your next celebration? Meet the dreaded blues lady, your go-to blues singer from Virginia, bringing heart, soul, and a whole lot of power to any event. Whether it's a house party, a birthday bash, or any special occasion, the dreaded blues lady will fill the room with music that touches the soul. From performing powerful blues and soul at your events to singing background vocals on your music tracks, she's got your musical needs covered for any project.
I can't be satisfied, and I just can't keep from crying.
Book the dreaded blues lady for your next event and bring the power of blues, soul, and inspiration to your celebration. Visit thedreadedblueslady.com or email info@dreadedblueslady.com today.
The Dreaded Blues Lady. Soulful music, powerful stories, unforgettable moments.
Hey, family. Welcome back to Auntie's Corner, where we speak our truth, share our scars, and offer light where others find only shadows. I'm your host, Lorie Jean Akambi, and today we're diving deep. This episode is one that sits heavy on the heart because it's personal, it's painful, and it's powerful. We're talking about the recent testimony of Cassie Ventura, a brave survivor of domestic violence and sexual abuse who stood up and told her truth about the years of trauma she endured in her relationship with music mogul Sean Combs, or P. Diddy, or Puff Daddy, or however we choose to remember him. Now, since her story broke, one question keeps popping up, one I've heard too many times in my own life as a survivor. Why didn't she just leave? Today, we're going to unpack that question, not with judgment, not with shame, but with understanding, expertise, and truth. Because the reality is, that question is more complicated than most folks realize. Joining me in this sacred and necessary conversation is Joy Ingram, poet, advocate, survivor, and what I like to call a love superhero. Joy has walked beside countless women through the darkest valleys of trauma and recovery. She knows how power, fear, and manipulation twist themselves around a person's spirit like barbed wire. And as someone who has survived domestic violence and sexual assault myself, I know firsthand the inner war survivors face. I know how hard it is to speak up. I know what it means to survive. Not just the harm, but the aftermath. So today's episode is for Cassie. It's for me. It's for Joy. It's for every woman, every person who's ever asked themselves if love should hurt this much and if freedom is even possible. This is Auntie's Corner, and we're going to speak on it. Hello, Joy. Welcome to Auntie's Corner.
Hi, Lorie. Thank you for having me. I'm excited about being here today.
Yes, yes. So, Joy, I am just going to dive into it. I mean, I've been hearing this all week, and so I got to start at the top. Why didn't she just leave? The wrong question to ask in cases of domestic violence.
Why didn't she just leave is the wrong question to ask because it's not as simple as picking up your purse and your car keys and walking out the door. It's never that simple. And a lot of people don't understand that. And the thing is, a lot of people don't understand domestic violence. Most people think domestic violence is just the woman with the black eye and the busted lip. They think that domestic violence is just physical, and domestic violence is so much more. Domestic violence typically starts out as psychological abuse because people don't just walk up to you, and club you over the head and drag you back to their cave and say, "You my woman now." That's not how it happens. People show up as Prince Charming. They tell you everything that they feel like you want to hear, everything that they think will get you hooked on them. And then once they're hooked, it changes up. And so a lot of times one of the biggest reasons people don't leave, particularly immediately, is because they hope things will change. Because this person hasn't always been like that. The person that did hit me, or the person that's manipulating me, the person who has sexually abused me, this is not the person that I met. So maybe they're just going through a rough time. Maybe things will change. If I give them some time, maybe it'll change. Also, a lot of times, abusers make the victim feel like the abuse that they're experiencing is their fault.
Mm-hmm.
And so victims will feel like, well, maybe I did something wrong, and maybe if I get it right next time, they won't abuse me anymore. They won't hit me anymore. They won't call me a bitch anymore. They won't make me feel worthless anymore. And so that's one of the many reasons that people don't just up and leave. Another reason is finances. When you get caught up in with someone in a romantic relationship, especially if you start to mix finances, or that person has taken care of you for a while, it's hard to get up and leave. You think about a person in a marriage, maybe they've got children, and the person has told them, oh, well, you don't need to work. I'll take care of you. You can be a stay-at-home mom. You can do all these things. And then when they start to abuse them and it's time to go, how do they leave? Because you don't have enough money saved up in a separate savings account, because often that person controls all the money. You don't have enough money saved up to just go out and get an apartment. Maybe you don't have job skills because you haven't worked in a while. So where are you going to get a job that's going to pay for an apartment or a house for you and the kids? There's finances that are involved in this. How are you going to pay your car note? How are you going to pay other bills? How are you going to do these things, particularly if you haven't done them for a while or not ever? You think about
Exactly.
you think
Exactly.
about Cassie was 19 when she met Diddy. What real life skills, what real world skills did she have at that time? Another reason folks don't leave sometimes is they don't have anywhere else to go. If
Mm-hmm.
they don't have money saved up to get their own place, not everybody has parents and
Mm-hmm.
friends and relatives that they can go to. There may be a domestic violence shelter in their area. Do they know about it?
Mm-hmm.
Does the shelter have availability for them and their kids? What kind of place is the shelter that they're going to? There are multiple reasons why people don't leave. And one of the biggest ones is fear of knowing what's out there besides this person, because the devil you know is often better than the devil you
You
don't
don't.
know. Um, Fear of, will I be able to make it on my own? Because a lot of the times when people are in these relationships, the abuser instills in them that they are worthless and they can't make it without them. So they're
Mm-hmm.
afraid, will I go out here and flop? Is
Yes.
my life really as worthless as they say it is? Will I not be able to do these things on my own? And another of the biggest factors is danger.
Mm-hmm.
When victims are leaving a domestic violence situation, that is when they are in the most danger. When they're leaving and right after they leave, they are 7 times more likely to be killed
Wow.
when they're leaving and right after they leave than any other time when they're in the relationship. Because when they leave, this is when the abuser feels like they've lost all power and control.
Yes. Wow. That is. Whew. That's a lot of information, Joy. But really, it speaks to just the complexity, just the web that exists when we talk about or try to just simply say, why didn't she just leave? So you mentioned some of these during your answer to that first question, and that is, can you walk us through what emotional manipulation looks like in an abusive relationship? You just said a little bit there about some of the manipulation that goes on or could potentially go on. Can you describe just a little bit more of it briefly?
Yeah, so a lot of times, an abusive, manipulative person will get to know what a person needs. They'll get to know their needs, their desires, things like that. And then later on, what they do is they cater to those needs and make the person feel like they are loved and they are wanted and they are needed and all those things. And then later on, what happens is they go back and they switch things up. You know, you were the most beautiful person in the world when I met you, when I got you, and all of a sudden you're a fat, ugly bitch. You know, and it's confusing to a
Mm-hmm.
person. It's
Mm-hmm.
confusing. You were everything, you were so smart, you were all these things, and now all of a sudden you're stupid.
Wow.
Um, and it confuses people because, you know, and confusion makes you less likely to react in an intelligent way
Mm-hmm.
because your smarts would tell you, I need to leave this situation. This is a bad situation. But confusion says, well, I was smart. He said I was smart, but now he's saying I'm stupid. Is he mad at me? Did I do something wrong? Am I really stupid? All these
Mm-hmm.
things. And a lot of times when you're confused like that, you can't react in an intelligent way. You
Exactly.
don't.
You
Yeah, and
know,
they pull on the heartstrings.
I think also to kind of add to this, her youthfulness.
Yeah,
I mean, you said she was 19. I mean, what do you really know about relationships, about yourself when you're 19? Leading off with question number 3, how does trauma bonding keep survivors connected to their abusers?
trauma bonding does a lot to keep victims connected to their abusers because they form this bond out of fear. They confuse a lot of what they're feeling
Mm-hmm.
with love, and it's not love. And a lot of times, people who form trauma bonds like this, they're unsure of what love is. They're looking for love, but they don't know how to recognize it. And when someone does things for them, even though it may be out of manipulation, they don't know that
Mm-hmm.
that's what
Mm-hmm.
it is. And so they bond to this person because the person isn't always bad. It's not always bad. They do some bad, they do some good, they do some bad, they do some good. And it's often to keep them in a state of confusion so they don't know how to just up and walk away.
In your experience, how does
Mhm.
isolation from friends and family factor into someone staying?
It makes the person more
Mm.
dependent on their abuser because if this is the only person that you know, if this is the only person who has been there with you, been there for you, it makes it easier for them to do things. It also provides a an air of secrecy because they're doing a lot of these things behind closed doors. They're not doing them in front of your family. Oftentimes, the person that's abusing you behind closed doors and isolating you, they're a different person when they're in public. And so it makes it difficult for people
Mm-hmm.
to believe you because this is your husband, this is your wife, this is your whoever. And when you're out in public, they seem like a great person. They may be a public figure. They may hold a position of esteem within the community. And so for you to tell someone that this person is abusing you, it makes it difficult for folks to believe that.
Yeah, yeah, and that's you can see a lot of that played into this because here both of them are, but certainly he more than her. He has the power, he has the fame, he controls her record contract, and so he has a lot of strings that he's able to pull. And so,
Okay.
how does power, especially fame, money, or social status, make it harder for survivors to leave?
That is a great question. Well, the thing is, abuse is all about power and control. So the more power a person has, the more control
Mm-hmm.
that they can exert. And that makes it much harder for someone to leave. If I control your money, if I control your reputation, if I control your sense of well-being, if I control your sense of belonging, it makes it that much harder for you to just up and walk away. It makes it that much easier for me to control you because I've got the
Mm-hmm.
power. So if I tell you to do something, you're more likely to do it because you feel like you don't have options. You feel like you can't just up and leave. You feel like you have to do what I say in order for you
Mm-hmm.
to be okay.
Thank you, Joy, for that. So, what are some of the psychological impacts of long-term abuse that outsiders often don't see?
What a lot of folks don't see is that long term abuse causes low self esteem. It causes depression. It can cause anxiety. It can cause PTSD. It affects your ability to have good relationships later on because you don't trust other people, and more often you don't trust yourself. If I picked this person before who was abusive to me, what makes me think I can pick a better person the next go round? So there are a lot of psychological issues that stem from long term abuse. And folks should probably seek counseling. I definitely recommend seeking counseling after anyone's been in an abusive
For
relationship.
sure, because it does have an impact on you. Now, how does shame and fear of being disbelieved keep survivors silent or trapped?
Fear and shame play a big role in making survivors feel like they are trapped. They are ashamed that they were in these positions because a lot of times
Hmm.
people blame them for being in the position. It's their fault. So they feel like, well, what did I do wrong? Am I a bad person? Shame is basically the fear of not belonging, the fear of being rejected. And so a lot of times when they tell folks that these things happen, and people reject their stories. Oh, that didn't really happen to you. That didn't happen like you said it did. That person would never do that. They don't have a reason to do that. Why would they do that? And number one, it makes them
Hmm.
shut down. So then when they don't tell their stories, it gives the predator an opportunity to go out and prey on other people. I say it all the time, silence empowers predators. Because if someone's out there and they're preying on one person and nobody says anything about it, and everybody in the community thinks that this person is just great and wonderful, that gives them an opportunity to go out and do it to someone else because they know that no one will talk about it. That's why you see child predators tell folks, don't tell anybody about this. Don't tell your mom and dad. They won't like that. They won't believe you or you'll get in trouble. They turn it against the victim, which empowers them, which gives them an opportunity to go out and prey on others even more.
Now, what role does victim blaming, especially in the media? I mean, again, I think when we ask this question, this is our way of doing some victim blaming. Why didn't she leave? So, what role does victim blaming play in keeping survivors quiet or complicit?
Victim blaming causes shame. It reiterates what they've been told that no one will believe them. It confuses them because even though they know that it's not their fault, they may start to doubt themselves. Well, is it my fault? Did I have a role to play in this? Could I have done something differently? Um, it also provides a culture where predators are protected because again, when you blame the victim, victims will often go silent. I'm not going to go out and tell my story if I know that if I tell someone that this person hurt me, they're going to say no, they didn't. That didn't really happen the way that you're saying it happened. You had something to do with this. This is really your fault. Why would I go out and tell someone else that this happened? And so when you have a society where people blame the victim and that causes victims to go silent. Nobody talks about it. And that is one of the things that brings power to the Me Too movement because you have one survivor speaking out on something that they thought was not the norm. They thought it was something that only happened to them. And then they spoke out about it, and someone lended power to their testimony and said, hey, that happened to me too. And so by doing that, they're able to demystify this really bad thing that happened to them and let folks know it's not some anomaly, some freak of nature that this happened. This is not the exception. This is actually the norm. And it's saying to folks, we need to do something about this. Now, are people actually going to do something about it? You do have some folks who are trying to do things about it, but then you have other people in powerful positions who are trying to shut it down, like with the federal government, trying to cut federal funding to organizations that help victims of domestic violence and sexual assault. The same federal government is saying, you know, you can't talk about DEI, you can't talk about multicultural communities. You can't talk about the LGBTQ community, and you can't direct your survivors to different organizations who specifically work with them. So you see where people in power are trying to shut down resources for victims of domestic and sexual violence. But we're not going to be stopped. We're not stopping.
Exactly, because it's needed.
We're
It's
not
needed
stopping.
because the problem is
Yeah.
huge. I mean, I just think we don't really know how big the problem is because there is a lot of silence that goes along with it. Now, what kind of support system actually helps a person leave and stay gone from an abusive relationship?
Folks need lots of different types of support. One of the biggest thing people need is finances. You got to have money to get somewhere else. You have to have finances to be able to be in a different place than what this person is in. So it may be finances to find another apartment, finances to pay a car note, finances to help take care of children, but finances are definitely needed. Another thing you need, like we were talking
Mhm.
about, counseling. Because those trauma bonds. You need counseling to understand what an abusive person looks like. You need counseling to understand what abuse is and what it's not, so that when you leave, Bob the abuser, you don't immediately go and get with Bill the abuser. Different names, different look, same abuse tactics. You need counseling to help you to be able to rectify and recognize those things. You need support because the days are going to be hard. It's one thing to say, "Oh, I need to leave this person." It's another thing to actually do it, because again, everything about the abuser wasn't bad. You had some good times. So you need someone to support you through those rough times when you're like, "Oh yeah, it was bad, but now I'm lonely. And now I miss the good times
Mhm.
that we had. So now I'm thinking about
Mhm.
going back." You need support in times like those. You need folks to be there with you to tell you, "No, you're not crazy. Your feelings are valid. The abuse was real, and you can get through this. You're a survivor. You can and you will
Yes,
survive."
yes. That reminds me of uh Gloria Gaynor. I will survive.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, hey.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, and yes. For those listening who may be in a situation like Cassie's, what's one message you want to leave them with?
I want them to know that they're strong. They can get out of the situation. They can do better. They deserve better. Nobody deserves abuse. Nobody's looking for abuse, nobody's asking for abuse, and it doesn't matter how powerful that person is and how maybe powerless you may feel like you are. You can get out of it. You deserve better. Move forward with your life and do great
Well,
things.
thank you, Joy, so much for being here today. Now, that really was a heavy one for sure, y'all, but it was necessary. We said what needed to be said out loud and without shame. To Cassie Ventura and every survivor listening, we believe you. You are not weak and you are not alone. To Joy Ingram, thank you for being a light in dark places. Thank you for naming the pain and showing us the path to healing. You remind us that love is not supposed to hurt, and when it does, we deserve better. And to everyone who heard this episode and asked yourself, what can I do? Well, you just did it. You listened. You learned, and I pray you lead with more compassion the next time a survivor tells their truth. And for those that may be seeking help, please contact the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1 800 799 7233. 1 800 799 7233. And that 7233 spells safe. Or go to their website, thehotline.org. That's THEHOTLINE.org, where you can make contact via chat or find their text information. Or locally serving our Stanton, Virginia, Augusta County, and Waynesboro area, contact New Direction Center at 540-886-6888. 6800. This is Auntie's Corner, and I'm Lorie Jean Akambi. Keep your heart open, keep your hands extended, and remember, speaking the truth can shake the world. Until next time, stay safe, stay strong, and never be afraid to live out loud.
Lorie out loud.